Jakarta, Indonesia on September 24, 2003. Ibu Ratna is picked up by military officials as she eats lunch at a diner. She is the professor of mycology at the University of Indonesia. They arrive at a lab, where she is asked to take a look at a specimen in a microscope. She knows exactly what it is, but when he tells her the sample came from a human, she says that cordyceps cannot survive in humans. He only stares at her. Then Professor Ratna arrives in a room where they must take extreme precautions. A deceased woman lays on the table, and was clearly bitten on the leg by a human. She reaches inside the woman's mouth and pulls out a creepy wiggling creature, proving the fungus was capable of thriving in the human host. The military explains that this happened about 30 hours prior. She was normal, then suddenly violent and biting other people. When the police came, she charged at them, so she was shot. Per procedure, it became necessary to shoot her bitten victims. However, whatever this is not contained because they don't know who bit this woman and there are 14 workers missing. The military official says they brought her there because they need her help to create a vaccine or medicine. She tells him she has spent her whole life studying these things, and she is absolutely certain they cannot create a vaccine or medicine for this. He asks what they can do, and she only pauses a moment before telling him to bomb the entire city and everyone in it. Then she starts crying and asks to go home, so she can spend the time she has left with her family. Ellie wakes up in a little patch of grass and notices Joel and Tess staring at her. Upon request, she shows them her arm. She swears she's not infected, pointing out that it's not getting any worse. She says she was locked up by Marlene instead of killed, to be tested each day to see if she got worse or turned into a monster. Tess says she made it through the night, but Joel doesn't think she has any hope or life ahead of her. Ellie has much better food than them, and Tess starts questioning her about just how valuable and special she is. Against Marlene's wishes, she tells them there's a Firefly base that's working on a cure, and whatever is happening to her could be the key to it. Joel doesn't believe it, and claims they've heard this 1,000 times before. Tess insists they finish the job so that either way they can get what they need to find Tommy. Joel agrees hesitantly and Ellie pretends for a second to be infected. They continue on their journey. They point out a giant hole in the ground and Tess explains how they bombed most of the big cities like that in hopes of containing the spread, but it didn't help. Tess asks how Ellie got bit in the first place, and she says she snuck into the locked-up mall in the QZ. Tess says she's got balls for a 14-year-old, and she says thanks. Ellie admits that she's an orphan, and thought the city would be way more swarmed and dangerous than what they've seen. She said everyone would talk about exploding fungus and crowds of infected that can see in the dark, but Joel just says that people like to exaggerate. They hear a disturbing scream in the distance. Ellie also admits that she can't swim, but it turns out it isn't that deep. She starts playing hotel bellhop and guest, accidentally scaring herself with a skeleton. They get to the 10th floor and Tess climbs through a blockage to find another way. Joel compliments Ellie's knife, and she says she learned how to flip it at the circus. She starts asking him personal questions, but he doesn't want to answer. She asks how long the infected last, and Joel says month or two, but some have been roaming around for 20 years. He says he's killed lots of them, and admits that it was hard sometimes. Tess returns, and shows them a horde of infected, explaining to Ellie that they're all connected by the fungus. You may step on fungus in one place and alert infected miles away. Tess says that even if she's immune to the sickness, she could still be ripped apart, and urges her to stay close to them and be careful. They arrive at a place they must cut through to reach the rendezvous. Since the fungus is bone dry, Joel believes they could all be dead inside. They find the body of a man who's more recently deceased, and Ellie swears his injuries aren't consistent with the infection. As they climb the stairs, the building shakes and the fungus becomes more prevalent. Ellie makes a noise, but everything still seems okay. They enter a room and the building shakes again, collapsing the ceiling in the hallway. They hear an infected making guttural noises, and hold their guns on him. They hear another one, and stand up against a glass case as Joel mouths that they can't see, but they can hear. One gets too close for comfort, alerted of their presence, so Joel shoots it and tells them to run. They split up, and Joel manages to reload his gun silently. He reunites with Ellie and they crawl away from it as quietly as possible, but Joel steps on glass. It leaps on top of him. After a struggle, he shoots it dead, and does the same with the second one as well. After the threats are eliminated, Ellie reveals that she's been bit again, and says if it was gonna happen to one of them, they were lucky it was her. They're determined to keep moving so they can get there before the sun sets. Joel is perplexed that Ellie still hasn't turned into a monster. Finding the truck empty, they follow the trail of blood inside the building and discover all the people they were meant to meet, dead. Tess starts searching for a map, asking Ellie where Marlene said she was going to take her, but all Ellie knows is that it was west. Joel says they should go home, but Tess says that's not home. She announces that she's staying there, not going back, and Ellie figures she's infected. Tess shows them her bite. They compare their wounds, and Tess insists that Ellie is the real deal. She tells Joel he needs to get her to Bill and Frank's and set everything right. The fungus starts moving when Joel kills one of the dead, and it awakens several infected all around the area. Following Tessa's request, Joel grabs Ellie and leaves. Tessa's lighter fails, allowing lots of infected to run after Joel and Ellie. But as an infected shares the creepy-legged creature with her, the lighter works and she drops it, causing an explosion that kills her and the dead. Joel walks away, refusing to let the reality of what just happened sink in.